Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bharani Kumar Aron, Vice President at HYSIA. On behalf of HYSIA, a very warm welcome to all the distinguished panelists and all the participants of today's session, COVID-19 Impact, Managing Risks and Growth in the IT Industry. As you may be aware that HYSIA is the primary industry body for ITES companies in Hyderabad. We're about 28 years old and have been working towards IT industry growth and sustenance in Hyderabad. We have close to 300 companies as members and represent the interest of IT, ITS, and software products industry, both domestic and export-oriented units in the state. Our activities include everything that has an impact on the software industry in Hyderabad. We seek to promote and encourage its member companies by institutionalizing awards for various categories. We have done more than 28 events last year that include 22 tech and business summits, focusing on various aspects such as conferences and workshops on emerging technologies, leadership training, CSR activities, job fairs, events focused on SME segment specifically as well. Based on the success of our tech and business summits, we came up with the thought of hosting web series. We did a successful event last week. We had more than 400, 500 people participate in the web series. And today is the second one. We plan to do more as the need seems to be more and more out there. We have two distinguished panelists and a moderator. Let me introduce the moderator and have him introduce the panel and take it forward. Our moderator is Mr. Kiran Cherukuri, Managing Director of TechEra, and he's also a management committee member of HYSIA. Kiran is associated with HYSIA for over a decade at various capacities and is known name in HYSIA circles. He comes with 27 years of IT industry experience, earlier worked with Tech Mahindra as a vice president and group head of sales for EMEA and ROW regions for infrastructure and cloud services business. Kiran, over to you.
So I see 203 people who have joined already. So welcome all of you for the second HYSIA Net series of webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, and then good evening. I see people joining from all the three time zones. So thank you all for taking time to be with us. Today we have actually a distinguished panel of speakers. So before I go and then introduce them, so let me set a quick context actually. So subsequent to the COVID-19 outbreak globally, in third week of March, India has actually announced the complete lockdown of 21 days initially. Later it got extended to 3rd of May nationally and then 7th of May in Telangana state. So now we are in this mode for more than a month and then 2 more weeks to go, considering that like we would not have any further announcements of extension. Okay. So this has a major impact globally as well as Indian IT industry. So we have two distinguished panels today with us to talk about. So let me first go and then introduce Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, IAS. I know Mr. Jayesh doesn't need any introduction for IT industry in Hyderabad, but I do want to let you know that like a couple of things which you do not know about Mr. Jayesh. So in 92 batch Indian Administrative Service Officer, and he was the All India topper in IAS exam in 1992. So he holds a master's degree in psychology from Delhi University, and then he did his business management IIM Calcutta. He also did his master's in public management from National University of Singapore. He's an avid learner, and he also completed many courses and certifications from some of the best schools across the world. So to name a few, LSE, Harvard University, Sweden Institute at Stockholm. So he has several certifications from these. And he participated in several consultancy assignments as part of World Bank and United Nations. And he is one of the national pool of trainers in leadership training. And then he frequently mentors and trains new recruits of civil servants. So Ranjan supports a lot of social and then cultural organizations. He is on the advisory board and the board member of several such organizations, including United Way and Save the Child Heart Foundation. So he is the current Principal Secretary of Industries, Commerce, IT, and then C departments in Telangana government. And so Mr. Jayesh, you have been a friend and an advisor for the IT industry in Hyderabad for last few years. And then we are really fortunate to have you as Principal Secretary at this juncture. We are facing a very difficult time. Thanks for joining the ICA series.
Thank you very much.
I'll come back with questions later, and after introducing Ravi, the second panelist, who is joining us from New York, Ground Zero. And so Ravi is the president of Infosys, and in his current role, he leads Infosys global delivery across all horizontals he managed, starting with the digital transformation services, ADMS, independent verification and validation services, infrastructure and cloud, engineering services, BI and analytics, pretty much everything an IT services company can think of. So now Ravi manages this. He's also championing the Infosys US talent model. And he's also driving an initiative of creation of innovation centers and then global technology centers across the US in association with the local governments as well as the academia and the clients put together. He's the chairman of the board of Infosys BPM. He's also chairman of the board of Infosys China, interesting. Chairman of Infosys Foundation USA and board member of Infosys Public Services. But Ravi is not a very unknown name for Hyderabad IT industry. He was part of us. 2014, he moved to US to head the BFSI and then cards and payment segment. But prior to that, between 2010 and 2014, he was the center head of Infosys in Hyderabad. During his tenure, Infosys Hyderabad Center with 22,000 people consecutively won the Infosys Excellence Award. So I welcome Ravi, fortunate to have you part of our panel today.
Thank you, Kiran. Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah. Before I go with a few questions to the panelists, I would like to actually give some quick pointers which are very, very relevant for today's discussion. Okay. All of us know that like as 2019, as per NASSCOM, India IT industry size is about $180 billion, 136 billion came from exports, out of which 90% of these exports are coming from, 62% is from the US, 17% UK, and 11% from rest of the Europe. So close to 90% of the IT industry revenues are getting impacted due to a COVID situation in those markets. Indian IT BPM sector employs about 45 lakh people. 40% of them are employed by SMEs. When I say SMEs, not just small and medium enterprises put together. Back home in Hyderabad, the total employment is about 5.5 lakhs. 4 lakh employees are with GICs and large companies. About 1.25 lakh of employees are with 1,500 plus SMEs and then 1,000 startups. Okay. A little vulnerable segment. Okay. NASSCOM IT BPM industry grew last year at 6.1%, and NASSCOM had a similar projection for growth of IT industry in the next few years. But now with this current situation, I think all these figures are going to be in a question mark. There are certain leading indicators, okay? And since the situation emerging, I think a lot of analysts and advisors actually looked at the impact and then they predicted how it is going to be. So IMF said that like 2020 global economy is going to get contrasted by -3%. Advanced economies, that is about 6.1%. But India is going to post a positive growth of meager 1.9%. Okay. Otherwise, it would have been around 6%. So Forrester has done a little deeper study in terms of the segment-wise impact of COVID-19. Anywhere between 5% to 30% is the impact on various segments, depending upon the impact levels. Overall, they said that like technology consulting will go down by 16%, and then outsourcing will be impacted by 7%. Okay. And we also have seen other reports from LBS, BSG, KPMG, and McKinsey, and majority of them actually has said that like the impact of COVID-19 is going to be higher than what we have ever seen since the World War II. As of now, there is a considerable impact on IT industry. in the short to mid-term, but of course, recovery is definitely expected into 2021. We have seen these kind of situations way back in 2000 and then later in 2008. I think IT industry in India has managed it well. So not all negative news, but there is also some positive news. ChAdOx one from Oxford Research, an experimental vaccine which is going on trials. They have a confidence that like probably this would work, and then they started manufacturing of 1 million doses, which is expected to be available by September. There are 3 other such vaccines which are under trials at this point of time. So it is promising that like probably there is some vaccine could be in the near future. Okay. So, sir, Jayesh sir and Ravi, this is a storm, and all the companies are impacted, geographies are impacted, but not all of us are on the same boat. So there are some cruise ships in this situation in the middle of the ocean. They have enough stocks, and with a ration imposed, and they are safe, and then they will be able to go up to the shores and then see the recovery. But there are some punctured boats, especially in the case of vessels across the country. So they have very limited. So it is a very tricky call for them that like whether they need to carry everybody and then somewhere sink in between, or probably be able to actually identify swimmers and then let them go at this point of time and then see if they are sustaining till the recovery. So that's a $1 million question at this point of time. But this is the situation that which various companies are facing at this point of time. Okay. So having said that, sir, whether the companies are big or small, right? And 2 commonsensical approaches that each of the companies have to do. One is basically cut down costs, conserve cash, and then there may be a need for government also to chip in and then give them some help and then stimulus so that like they can survive if they are smaller companies. And then the second is basically the resilience and then the recovery. Companies identify situational as well as a new opportunity that would emerge in the new normal and reinvent themselves, and which has happened, as I said, that like in 2000 and 2008. So with this context, sir, how do you foresee the situation? This question is to Mr. Jayesh. How do you foresee the situation panning out from government point of view? How long do you think that like the lockdowns are going to be? There's going to be a pattern that is basically predicted. Somebody says it is a W curve. Okay. What are the measures, preparedness from the government side, and what is the advice your side to IT industry perspective? And are there any specific measures that which you would advise us, and then the direction that IT industry should take? Over to you, sir.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Kiran. My gratitude to the HYSIA leadership team for organizing this webinar. Gives me an opportunity to also understand your concerns, your feedback, understand perspectives from industry leaders like Mr. Ravi Kumar, and also give a brief understanding from a government point of view to more than 200 participants at the same time. So I see great value in this webinar. Now, to address some of these topics that you have raised, Kiran, let me begin by sharing a few data-based or evidence-based perspectives or analysis which we have built for Telangana. Now, if you look at China, which perhaps is one country where the curve has not just been flattened, it is about to disappear altogether. So if you see what has happened in China, you have seen, like any other country also, gradual acceleration of cases spreading from Wuhan to begin with, going to rest of the country. Within that city of Wuhan also, containment, clusters have emerged very, very rapidly. And then things have peaked at some point in time, overwhelming their capacities, infrastructure. But China being China, they have been able to physically create all that infrastructure very, very rapidly. We all know about that example on how a hospital, a completely new hospital, right from ground zero up, was built in just 10 days. So they have done incredible things. And we now know that it is fast getting back to business as usual. Their manufacturing has started. I was reading a Knight Frank report this morning, which actually has been authored by their people who are in China, their Shanghai office, their other China-based, Beijing-based analysts and all, and they have started telling us that manufacturing is now more than 50 to 60% manufacturing has started, and probably the value chain disruption in rest of the world that they are not able to go up to 100%. But whatever China has to do to get its house in order, they have all been able to do it in the last 10, 15 days or so. Now, presuming that the same trajectory runs in India as well, and of course in India, as we are seeing, there is huge variation among states. Like on the one hand, we have Kerala, which looks like going on this China path. But on the other hand, we have Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, etc., where things are appearing to be a bit overwhelming at this point in time. Telangana, fortunately, is somewhere in the middle. And our data, if those of you who follow local health bulletins and the health data here, I'm sure you would be feeling optimistic. Now, two important points of optimism. One is that most of the new cases which are coming in the state are all coming from within the containment zone. So if you are able to tighten your monitoring and your containment activities in those zones, then hopefully the rest of the population will come out unscathed. Of course, we have to continue to take precautions of personal hygiene, putting on this mask, social distancing, avoiding crowding, sanitizers, and so on and so forth. But by and large, it does not appear as if the whole population will get affected or we will become overwhelmed at any point in time. But at the same time, lots of people for the country as a whole are predicting that we have not yet reached the peak. Our peak will come only in May, middle of May or third week of May. So while it does not seem to be 100% true for Telangana, but at the same time, it is better to be more than precautious, better to be extra precautious, because this is something which can potentially become the differentiator between life and death. So many of you would be aware that while the national government permitted IT industry, manufacturing, etc., to resume operations, not fully, but in some measure, from 24th April onwards, our government has chosen not to do so. Our government have decided to continue the lockdown till the 7th. And again, on the 5th of May, stock will be taken. We are getting lots of data, lots of health experts analyze those data and bring inferences to our knowledge. So on 5th, again, stock taking will happen, and depending upon how close we are to kind of flattening the curve or preventing new infections from happening, preventing secondary source infections from happening, then some amount of opening up will be definitely permitted. But right now, we cannot predict anything for sure. We cannot tell for sure that, okay, from 7th onwards, it will be business as usual or something else will be the scenario. Let us just wait and watch. But let me also tell two additional things. One is that the way IT industry has coped with this lockdown, starting from March 22nd, that has been very, very appreciable. In fact, lots of national level recognition has come to this IT industry in Hyderabad in particular, in the agility that we have shown to transition into a work from home scenario without disrupting any of the SLAs, any of the deadlines. Even mid-scale companies, small companies who typically don't have the resources to get so much of hardware into their homes, their employees' homes, and then load software and manage transportation, etc., etc. Even they have done remarkably well. And therefore, the overall global reputation that Hyderabad used to have, that it is a place where turnover is very, very, turnover meaning client responses to clients' business demands or business requirements, that is turnout rather. The turnout is very, very impressive. All that reputation remains intact, and the appreciation has gone many notches up because of the way we have handled the situation. But the last point which I want to mention, Kiran, is that you asked about what the government will do to support this industry. Now, three important points which I wanted to share with you. One is that we do want to support the industry because the industry has done so much for us. I mean, as we see year after year after year, you also mentioned, I think Bharani mentioned in his introduction, the size of the industry here, the contribution the industry makes to our economy, to our GDP. So you are one of the biggest contributors to our economic growth, and therefore it is our responsibility at this point in time to be of assistance to you, and we will never shy away from doing that. So 3 quick points which I wanted to tell you. One is that on Tuesday, the Union IT Minister is having a meeting with all the state IT ministers. Day after Tuesday, not day after, but 2 days from now, or 3 days from now. And the whole purpose of this meeting is to discuss what kind of solutions, what kind of expectations the industry expects from the government, and what can be done by the national government. What are the things which the state governments need to supplement. So I'm very confident that on Tuesday, we will get some very good answers, or at least some very good pointers on what all can be done by the national government and the state governments to support the industry. The second thing which I want to share, which can be done by our government itself, is that I'm already compiling. We would like to give, as soon as things become normal, as much of government business to our homegrown industry as possible. So that even if you're, let us say, many of you depend on, let us say, the entertainment industry or the hospitality industry or the tourism industry or some other industry, automotive industry or aviation industry, which obviously is going to be impacted the most. And your cash flows come out, your projects dry up, you don't have any other business. We would like to give you as much of government business as possible. There are 35 government departments. We have already started gathering information on what kind of projects they can implement. And we will ensure that the majority of it, if not 100%, goes to local companies so that some immediate market, some immediate support goes to them. The third thing which I have already announced it, many people know of it, but I can share this once again. The small number of people who are getting laid off, of course, not to say that they are not having skills, etc. But we would also like to upskill them at our own cost without charging anything from those candidates, to ensure that at least we know that while, as I mentioned, aviation and entertainment, hospitality, tourism, there is some downturn, but there are some sectors which are bound to do even better. BFSI sector in particular is expected to do well. EdTech is expected to do well. Healthcare or health tech is expected to do well. And obviously there will be some more recruitment, some more job opportunities in these sectors. So I'm trying to work out a system of the persons who are compulsorily laid off and who have been upskilled. Can they be recruited in a lateral entry fashion within the industry, which is showing better results and better opportunities? So these are the 3 things which I have in mind immediately. One is to work out a stimulus package with the help of union government, on which we will get some more clarity after Tuesday. Second is to give as much as business as possible from the government agencies. And third is to help those people who are facing the real brutal shock of this pandemic by getting terminated, by reskilling them and or rather by upskilling them and helping them through lateral entry programs, jobs in some of these promising sectors. So these are some of my opening answers, Kiran, to some of the questions that you asked.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Actually, so I think it is 48 hours to 72 hours the industry has got, and then so without major productivity loss, the industry has been able to actually switch the mode from work from office to work from home. I think a great support provided by the government, STPI, and SEZ authorities and police and all the 3 commissionerates, and then we appreciate that, sir. In addition to that, actually, even the families also need to be appreciated. So they also accommodated people working from home. So thank you so much. I think those 3 boosters that which you talked about is definitely going to help. And there are some specific suggestions in the direction, sir. So I'll come back to you after a couple of questions with Ravi. Ravi, so having said that, like, I think there are 2 initiatives. One is basically identify avenues for the cost cutting and then conserve cash. The second is identifying the growth levers and then see if there is investment can go in the direction. So Infosys, 2.5 lakh global workforce, 93% of them shifted to work from home mode. right? And what all measures as an flagship organization that which Infosys is taking with respect to workload optimization, lean time utilization, cost containment, client handling, employee communication, and moral boosting, right? So companies across the board. So I see close to about 274 people as of now joined here. So maybe from about close to 150 to 160 companies. There's a great learning that which they will have from what you talk about these things.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiran. Thanks for this opportunity. Excited to talk to all of you. And I learned a lot from what Mr. Jayesh Ranjan spoke a few minutes ago. The Indian IT industry has always won in the turns. If you go back to the Y2K boom, which was a crisis for the world, not a crisis of this kind, but still a crisis. The Indian IT industry kind of turned around and created an opportunity for itself. When the telecom infrastructure across the world bursted because the first wave of e-commerce applications really turned down, or the e-commerce wave went down, the Indian IT industry used the telecom infrastructure to create a diverse set of services from India. I think this is another crisis. Humankind, and specifically India, has this innate ability to convert the worst of the times to the best of the times. This crisis will unfold itself in 4 phases, and we are in the first phase. Unlike the Eastern world, the Western world, which is where all the Indian IT is dependent on, is not going to deal with this situation with the same level of intensity. I am living in Manhattan, New York City. It's in the middle of the epicenter of the crisis. I can tell you, I work with 2 local governments. I'm on the advisory for the state of Connecticut and the advisory for the state of Rhode Island for COVID. Both these governors are very close friends of mine. They do not want to do contact tracing. They do not want to do contact tracing to the level of intensity China did. I'm the chair of the board of China, so I know the way China did contact tracing, the way India is doing contact tracing. India is doing relentless contact tracing. They're not doing testing as much, but they're doing relentless contact tracing. The US and a significant part of Europe is doing great testing, but they're not doing contact tracing because they kind of weirdly think privacy laws stop it. I kind of don't understand this because it is comparison of life versus privacy laws, but they're choosing privacy laws over life. So the second phase we are going to get into is going to be back and forth. We'll be partially shut down, fully shut down, partially on, fully on, and it will go back and forth. The third phase is when the vaccine is going to be on. And I know there are many attempts on the vaccine, but vaccine on a mass scale is probably 12 months away. And as you get to that phase, I think a new normal will be established. We will start forgetting the old normal. And I would say you will get to a hybrid model where 25-30% of the people work from home and 75% of the people work from office. Provocatively, one of my competitors actually said by 2025, 25% will only come to office. I don't want to put a number, but we will go through a massive shift in how the workplaces are going to be for the future. And by 4th phase, and that's my last phase, you're going to look for more. Remember, the virus is a known unknown. It was, everybody knows what a virus is. It's a known unknown. Organizations are going to prepare for a next unknown in the 4th phase. So I would say organizations will move from agility to agility plus resilience. No longer organizations are going to be valued on agility. They're going to be valued on agility and resilience. This shock would have moved organizations to that bit. So I would say the 250,000 employees of Infosys, 93% going back to work from home, and turning that around in 2 or 3 days with the support of the local governments. And Mr. Jayesh Ranjan spoke about this being an essential services. All of that helped us. But the questions which will come up now is, was the productivity of the same level as it was before? If I go through these 4 phases, well, of course, the next 12 months is going to be very critical because you're going to do partial shutdowns and you're going to do on and off. Hopefully it's not 12 months, but it's probably less than that. Are you as productive as you were before? And if you are as productive as you were before, then clients, large enterprises won't mind moving you into that operating model. Otherwise, they will start shrinking this down because they will then start believing that this is not working. So one of the biggest experiments all of us have to do as an industry is, in that hybrid model, as we get to the new normal, are we more productive? My personal opinion, I'm going to leave a few things on the table. I've actually seen productivity go up in the last few weeks versus the past. You know, most enterprises across the world operate out of urban, dense urban settings. So the commute times have shrunk. People are productive for only 4 to 5 hours at office when they go for 8 or 9 hours to work. So if you actually look at it right now, people are having longer periods of work. They're working round the clock. In fact, one of my Chinese developers said this: we have moved from 995 to 007, 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the evening, 5 days a week, to 007. He actually said this, and that is true. So we are going in smaller spurts. We are mixing our personal lives, which means you're going to be much more productive. In fact, one of my clients yesterday told me that they have had code drops at 1 in the morning, which they never had before. So if we can measure productivity and come back with more data around it, the hybrid model will really work. But I think the Indian industry will significantly benefit out of this crisis, because it also proves, in fact, there was a client of mine who did 30% offshoring, and right now they're all virtual, 100% virtual. So I went back to the client yesterday and I told them, look, now I believe you could do 80% offshore, because the last few weeks, you know, you had people virtually working. It didn't matter whether they were in the United States or they were actually in India. So this is an opportunity for you to take cost out and actually increase offshoring. So certainly that is a positive, if I may. If you can actually say productivity has improved, I am okay working virtual plus physical, and I'm willing to do more offshoring. And by the way, there is one other client who told me this, that my window of overlap with India has gone up. It used to be 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, and now it is literally everything, because everybody is available at any point of time to talk to me. So the moment the window goes up, then the opportunity to offshore goes up. That's the point I'm making. Work by itself, and this is about workplace, work by itself will move from humans to humans plus machines, and that is a reality. If organizations actually embrace more automation, more AI, and this shock will give a leapfrog into that space. So you're going to see much more automation, much more AI embraced into workplaces. So if any of the SMEs are hooked onto the artificial intelligence space or machine learning or data and insights, you're going to find much more green shoots in there. The third piece, which is workplace and workforce, 90% of the workforce in the Western world, in the United States, is actually full-time equivalent. And with this experience and with this shock, a lot of the gig economy is going to come mainstream into the enterprise workforce. And that's a very important thing for India, because the moment the gig economy comes into picture, spurts of work could be offloaded to contingent workforce. Remember, the gig economy in the US is predominantly in the ride-share economy. It is not as much in enterprises. So that will go up. There's only 10 million jobs which are in the gig economy in the US out of the 170 million jobs. So that will potentially go up to 20 to 25%. So workplaces and workforce will change. And if enterprises are going to deal with it well, I'm quite sure that it will work. Coming to small firms, I think the biggest challenge for small firms is they don't have a physical landscape with large enterprises, and large enterprises are going to shrink their physical landscape. And if they shrink their physical landscape, they're going to get the smaller players out of the mix, and they will consolidate with the large players. So the thing to be watchful about is how do you create a model where you're virtual and delivering to the same outcomes if you want to survive in this economy. So there is going to be vendor consolidation. There is going to be provider consolidation. I am already seeing a lot of captives up for sale. Why are captives up for sale? Because people are shrinking their physical footprint. They do not want to have a captive in India. So they're going to sell it off to providers. And it's a great opportunity for providers to buy them and actually create momentum around it. You know, digital dollars, Kiran, were spent for supplier value chains and consumer value chains. Digital dollars are now going to be spent in the workplace. They're going to be spent for talent value chains. So if system integrators and service providers pivot themselves into services like virtualization software, end-use compute, service desk, office productivity, personal productivity, you're going to find green shoots in it. Cloud migration will become very mainstream because counterintuitively, the migration to the cloud only happened because you wanted infrastructure at scale to be available on demand. Right now, secure workloads are much more secure on the cloud than on your premises. So there will be a much bigger embrace of cloud migration. So if you are actually pivoting yourself to cloud services, you will continue to grow rapidly. You know, I actually spoke to one CIO who is a friend of mine yesterday, and he gave me this fascinating example I should quote here. He said the role of the CIO is back in the middle. The CIO actually went into sunset in a way in the last few years because digitization created a new role called the Chief Digital Officer. And in some companies it is merged, but in many companies it is actually separate. CIO is back in the middle. Today, you are no longer tested for agility, but you're tested for agility and resilience, as I spoke about. So the CIO is suddenly not only looking at IT, but also looking at operational technologies. Remember, every business is today asking the CIO, should I open the office? Is my warehouse ready to go? Where is my inventory stuck? Where are my supply chain disruptions? All that information and decision support is actually with the CIO. So the CIO is painting the art of possibilities, and the businesses are then building their operating models. It is reversal of sorts to the past, where the business would tell the CIO, this is what I want, and the CIO would build technology around it. Now, the CIO is in the middle. The CIO is painting the art of possibilities, and the CXOs are then deriving their operating model. In fact, one of my clients yesterday said, clock speed has moved from years to months to days to hours. Clock speed has moved from years to months to days to hours, which means the speed at which things have to be taken, decisions have to be taken. The government is doing a fascinating job in many states in India, and they're on the hook, if I may. But in many parts of the world, governments are wired to the first 20 years of citizens' lives and the last 20 years of citizens' lives. They're not wired in the middle. But all the change is happening in the middle. If you look at it, just go to any part of the world, the change is happening in the middle. So I would actually think it's the same thing with CIOs now. CIOs are now sitting in the middle, taking decisions on operating models and business models, because that is the future which the organization is dealing with. So very interesting dynamics about people, about workplaces, about work, about the industries. In fact, if you look at the industry trend, telecom, utilities, fast-moving consumer goods, grocers are benefiting significantly out of this process. Walmart is hiring 200,000 people. You'll be astonished if I tell you this. Instacart, which does food delivery to homes, owned by an Indian, just announced yesterday they're going to hire 350,000 people for the next 3 months. They're higher than anybody else because that's what is selling now. Now, what will happen there? There will be a permanent shift of people not, a large chunk of people not going to large malls and actually, delivering stuff to homes. So all of that will be green shoot industries, I would say. Healthcare, life sciences, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan spoke about healthcare and life sciences. However, banking and financial services will be impacted with a lag, unlike in the other downturns where banking and financial services got impacted early on and everybody else later. Here it will be the reverse. Banking will get impacted later because the yield curves are going to shrink. Mortgages are going to be there will be a lesser number of mortgages. Most of the mortgages today are refinancing in the US. New mortgages are not being there. So banking and financial services will get impacted, but in the future. Oil has nothing to do with the crisis. It had a demand and a supply problem even before the crisis. So oil has been, in a disastrous situation. I hate to say this. I used to say data is the new oil, and now you can't even say that. You almost have to say, oil is the new toilet paper. So in some ways, the green shoot industries will be the essential services industries where technology will be embedded in a big way. So I'm going to stop here. Otherwise, I can go on.
Okay, thanks, Ravi. I think so. Probably, I think all that what you are speaking as of now is the perspectives that are emerging out of your conversations with your clients because you're sitting there and then communicating. But definitely, I would like to get one direction from you, especially for the SMEs. Some specific guidance in terms of 2 or 3 things that they should be doing. One is for the survival. The second is for the resilience, right? So resolve and then basically resilience. I'll come back to you and after a question to Mr. Jayesh. Sir, you were mentioning that I think next Tuesday is going to be a day when IT ministers, okay. So here there are from our side, SMEs are lungs for the industry and the society. Now there is a fibrosis problem. So I think when there is a fibrosis, I think there need to be more exercise and then more oxygen to be given. So SMEs require that kind of an oxygen at this point of time for their survival. I know ventilators are very scarce at this point of time, so US has given something called an area loans, small business loans, and in India the biggest problem for small industries is even access to the capital. That is a challenge. But for a short-term perspective, I think majority of these small and medium enterprises would have some credit line. The credit line could be 50 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, or whatever it is. For a temporary period of 6 months or 12 months, can the credit line be extended by another 50%? So that they don't have to lose out on the resources which they have actually trained hard, and then actually they probably may be ready for actually delivering at this point of time. This suddenly has come. There is no way that they can go to anybody. So that's one is enhancement of credit line. So it is, I know it is a central subject probably, but you could actually see that thought, one. The second is on the rental part. So I think this is already given for the residential users, and then if IT parks and then commercial establishments can extend this to some of the SMEs, whoever is an MSME certified, that's one. The third is basically majority of these companies service the larger companies, and there is also an MCA guideline for a 45-day payment terms for the smaller companies. But invariably, the 45-day becomes 60 and 90. And then at this juncture, I think a good number of companies are not receiving their outstanding payments. So one directive, if that whatever India-based clients that like SME should be paid instead of 45 days at 30 days, then they will ease up their cash flows and they'll be able to pay salaries. So these are the small things. It doesn't actually exchequer much, but probably I think it will ease out the financial situation for the SMEs. Kindly think through on these, sir. So, yeah, yes, sir. So other thing is on the SEZ benefits, and then I think a good number of benefits actually industry has foregone recently. So if there is a extension of that for a further period, I think that is going to help the industry also become a little competitive if there is an opportunity for us to actually turn some of the global companies to India from China or other geographies.
Yes, Kiran. So the suggestions that you are making are extremely practical. They make sense. And in the Tuesday meeting, we have prepared a list of issues that we are going to raise, and these are included. I was not aware about the MCA 45 days payment deadline, which can also be kind of advanced. We will include this point, but the other 2 points of helping them with loan credit line extension and also giving them some kind of a rental support. These points are already there in my in our kind of list that we intended to bring there. Now, of the 3 points that you have spoken about, the extension of credit line, etc., appears to be quite doable because the RBI has already announced similar benefits for the manufacturing SMEs. You might be aware about it. And similarly, taking a clue from RBI's announcements, a few individual banks have started rolling out their schemes, which I came across the SBI scheme. And what I could read there, I of course need clarification from the SBI CGM here, but what I could read and understand is that it makes no distinction between a manufacturing SME and a service SME. So if my interpretation is correct, I would request you to publicize the SBI's, the State Bank of India's latest scheme. They have given some catchy name to it. I don't recall what that name is, but it has a very good package. So please popularize it in terms of ensuring that the see the rental decisions. Obviously, we don't require any government of India nod for that. It is something which has to be done between the employers or let us say between the developers and the property owners and the companies. In the case of residential rentals also, government has just issued an enabling order that no one should demand those rentals. So we can issue a same order, but we have to do it in a balanced way. We also have to understand about the cash flows and about their kind of internal economics, which the property development companies and the developers face. One suggestion, in fact, while Ravi Garu was speaking, I was also looking at the questions which have been posted. And there is a very practical suggestion. One suggestion which has been given is that we will continue to pay 50%, but the maintenance and the remaining 50% can be deferred. It's not that I won't pay at all, but I will pay that later on. So it's not to say that I won't pay anything, which is the residential government order. So this looks to be a more balanced kind of thing. My colleague Amarnath is also participating in this webinar. I will ask him to have a quick kind of a consultation with at least 7-8 top property developers whose IT parks, etc. we all know. They're all there in this Hyderabad area. So let us come to some kind of a consensual decision making on this aspect. And the other point about the SEZ benefit, in fact, you'll be happy to know, perhaps we are the earliest state which has raised this issue. We have already raised this issue with the Commerce Ministry almost a month ago when COVID was at a very, very early stage in our country. Sometimes in middle of March itself, we have addressed the Commerce Ministry. And of course, the Commerce Ministry, because of the lockdown and all, not too much of work was happening. But now that offices are operating in Delhi, I will try to find out how have they responded to this request of ours. I'm confident that we will get that relaxation because many other similar timelines or deadlines have been extended. This also ought to be extended. And the added point which you mentioned, India has suddenly become very important investment destination for Japanese companies, Korean companies, etc., which used to have a manufacturing footprint in China. So we will definitely be pitching this point also, that unless you continue SEZ benefits for some more time, maybe a year or so, we will. I mean, the new investments will lose out on something which the earlier investments had benefited. So definitely, lots of ideas are there. Let us see what gets concretized or crystallized. Which are the ideas? See, on Tuesday there will be other states as well, other state ministers as well. So we'll also get a chance to listen to what other states are thinking, and if some of those are also making sense to us, and they are practical, and they are also within the state's command, we would like to implement all of them without waiting for Government of India's decisions. So let us keep our fingers crossed. But the bottom line is that definitely the government will support. In which form, how quickly, we will get some more clarity in days to come.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you have a positive response for all the suggestions. I think thank you so much. In the interest of time, actually, we just have only two minutes, and then with your permission, if we could actually take 3 more minutes, so 5 more minutes, and then we will wind up. Ravi, this question to you, and then this always I wanted to ask. There are force majeure clauses, and then given the current situation, like only force majeure is for the act of God and then other natural disasters, right? So now there are, if some places actually there is an SLA holiday can be granted, or probably I think the project there a provision that like can we actually invoke this force majeure clause if in case there are some issues with the contract? Any idea if you have that probably could.
Yeah, so Kiran, this event actually qualifies for a force majeure clause. Okay. And there are quite a few clients who've actually come back on a force majeure clause and actually canceled our contracts as well. So I'm sure the SMEs also are going through the same situation. However, remember one thing, most clients today still have to run their essential services. So the force majeure clause is being invoked only to negotiate the process back. So everybody who invoked that force majeure clause only wanted to negotiate and use that as a point of negotiation. So I would say you should almost think the force majeure clause is a point of negotiation rather than canceling a contract. They would come back and negotiate. That would be at least my my advice. You asked that question earlier about advice to SMEs. I would say pivoting into those industries which we spoke about, which will continue to show green shoots, I think is very critical. Services are very horizontal, tech services are. So if you pivot into those services, it'll be very critical. Second, and I'll just bullet it because we don't have time. The large companies tom-tommed about the 95% working from home and everything else. I think the smaller companies should also do the same. I don't think this is about the large companies. This is about the support of the state governments, which is helping us to create that kind of momentum to take it back home and rework the whole thing. The infrastructure of the country is fully supporting it. I think that's an important message. A lot of my clients actually think that the telecom infrastructure is not sufficient enough to work out of homes. So I think the smaller companies should send that message out that, look, it is not about the big companies. Even the small companies have done 95% from home. So that resilience actually shows up in the smaller companies. That is because, not because they themselves are efficient. That is because the ecosystem in India looks at IT services as essential services. We get the same status, and hence we've been able to do that. The third piece I would say is pointed innovation. In these times, pointed innovation, I know a company in Bangalore which does contactless retail. And they are pitching contactless retail to all the groceries in the US, and they're using this opportunity to make it much more efficient. We spoke about workplace technologies and how workplace technologies can play a big role. Cloud we spoke about. These are green shoots, and smaller companies have the agility to move into those green shoots faster than the larger enterprises. See, larger enterprises like us, We do so much traditional services that these green shoots are not enough to neutralize it. But in the smaller companies, if you have the resilience, you can switch over to these new services. There is a ton of work happening on collaborative software, on service desks, on productivity software, a lot of things, because we are enabling virtualization. I know of a small company in India which does virtual desktop in an outcome-based model. So they give you a virtual desktops. They take your desktops, virtualize it, and give it back to you, and they do it on demand. Which means tomorrow, if you say I have to do 1,000 of them, they will do it on demand. And I think this is an opportunity for extreme offshoring. These are the 5-6 things I would believe if the small companies can enable it, they will probably have the same advantage as the large enterprises. And actually, on the contrary, they could have more. They will struggle on working capital. They will struggle on physical landscape because they depend on clients' premises to work. They will struggle on those bits, and those are the bits they have to work on.
Thank you, Ravi. Actually, these points definitely are going to help the SMEs to at least deliberate in that direction and then see if there is a feasibility for them to actually catch on. With this, we have come to an end of this session. So there are several questions which have been posed on chat, but probably we are going to group all of them and then direct it to the panels and then get that answered. Haisya takes that responsibility. And thank you, Ravi, and then thanks, Jayesh sir, for joining. I know that like it is a very busy times for both of you, but I think you've taken time for Haisya's request, and we look forward to interact with you more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jayesh sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.